And we're live on the Staples Network.
Welcome to a special edition of ATL Prime Sports, brought to you by the Association of Professional Ball Players of America. I'm Todd Corder, bringing you back in NHL history with former NHL great Bobby Carpenter, who played 18 years in the National Hockey League. Bobby, welcome to ATL Prime Sports.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. When did you start playing hockey, and who did you learn the most growing up with the game? Who did you learn the most from?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, I started earlier than I can remember, that's for sure. So if I was born in 63, I probably started skating somewhere around 66 or 67. And it was all because of number 4, Bobby Orr. He brought hockey to Boston. He got everybody excited about it, and it was a big boom with the hockey world. So everybody started to play hockey back then. I think probably when I was younger, obviously it was my father that was the most important to my development. And he did know some things about hockey, but he knew about discipline and about training and about working hard and ethics and honesty. So he definitely got me on my right track when I was a young kid. No question.
Your high school career at St. John's Prep, you almost averaged a goal a game, and you averaged over 2 points a contest. Those numbers are insane. How did you do it?
Well, we had a very good team, and that's when Massachusetts hockey was at its best. And we had a league called the Catholic Conference that was it had a lot of great players. A lot of those kids went to play Division I college hockey, but we had an incredible coaching staff. We had a guy by the name of Joe Yannetti, who ended up doing a lot of he was the player development for Winnipeg Jets and Chicago Blackhawks. His son is actually the head amateur scout for the Los Angeles Kings, and he was very knowledgeable about the sport of hockey. But we had a real technical assistant coach by the name of Eddie Rossi, and he went to Harvard. He played at Harvard. He was like maybe 6 or 7, 8 years before me, where it was very difficult for Americans to break in. And did he have the skill and ability to do it? Yes, but the door really wasn't quite open for him. There was lots of Americans back then where had lots of skill and ability, but the door wasn't open yet.
Let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit here in your career. In February of 1981, you were featured on a cover story of Sports Illustrated that spoke about your potential. And how did you deal with all this attention?
Well, again, my father, he was very, very down to earth. He was very humble. I didn't know half the things that were going on. They kept them secret. They wanted to keep me level-headed and down to earth. So it was very simple with my dad because I never was good enough. Not that he would tell me that. It was just I could do better. I got to do more. I got to work harder. I got to do this. I got to do that. If you want to get to this level, this is what you need to do. Not one time did he say, "Oh, this is great. You're satisfied. You should be happy." There was always something more to do. And even with that great big article with the Sports Illustrated and everything, that was just the beginning. It was just the beginning of it. But that was the easy part. The hard part was to be able to make it to the NHL and stay there for 18 years. I didn't realize that the easy part was done.
You're listening to Bobby Carpenter here on ATL Prime Sports, going back in National Hockey League history. In 1981, you were the first player to make the jump from high school straight to the NHL. You were drafted 3rd overall by the Washington Capitals. What was your thought process, and what was that like?
Well, back then there wasn't much press about it. It was not the hoopla. I think there was in Canada, but in the United States, no. I mean, I didn't even go to the drafts. It was just something you didn't do back then. But what ended up happening with me was I was on the radar for a long time, and then we ended up having a World Junior Championships, which you see on TV all the time. I mean, the hoopla and the press that it gets. Well, back then it was a very quiet tournament, and there was another player that was the top player in Canada. His name was Dale Howardchuk, and I was like probably going to go second or third round, and so we ended up playing them in the tournament. We ended up beating them like 7-4. I think I had 3 goals and 5 points. So I just shot right to the top with him. And it's amazing what one game could do. But there was not much exposure back then. I mean, there was no internet. There was all word of mouth. So it ended up taking off, and I ended up getting drafted. And it happened so fast because that tournament was in January. And next thing you know, 8 months later in July, I'm leaving to go to Washington. It just was one thing that happened, and it just took off. There was no time to think about it. That's for sure.
You scored an assist on a goal by Ryan Walter. This is incredible. At 12 seconds in your debut game against the Buffalo Sabres in October of '81, this is still the quickest assist by a player in their first game. What did you think when you did that so quickly? That, hey, man, I think I can make it here.
Well, it all happened fast. Those were 2 great. I got drafted by the most perfect team for me. They were in the transition stage. They had a couple of really, really strong young players, Mike Gartner, Ryan Walter. They were changing. They had lost for so many years. They had a lot of top draft picks. Darren Veach, the defenseman, was one. Rick Green. I mean, I could go through the whole list. And so it just started to change. And I was welcome there. We had an older group of players that were very, very good to me. They wanted to teach me how to be a part and be a pro and be an adult. And I mean, I was a kid. I was 18 years old, but I went to the right team. And that first, so we had went to Europe, and we went to, it's so funny. It's a story. So I was 18 years old, and we went to Europe to play. Our training camp was over in Finland, and I'll never forget it. So I'm in, and we play the Rangers. The Rangers went over there with us, and we played a couple of Finnish teams and Swedish teams. And I remember one of the games, Bobby Hull was getting ready to retire, and he was trying to make a comeback. So I was in the shower all by myself, and it was one of those old Swedish rinks where they had adjoining showers, and Bobby Hull walks in, and I'm looking at him like, whoa, this is unbelievable. Sitting there having a shower with Bobby Hull. But it was, I had a great team. I had a great team that really welcomed me.
Well, with the Washington Capitals in the 84-85 season, you scored 53 goals, 42 assists, and you became the first United States-born player to score 50 goals in a season. What was that like, A, and B, how much did the achievement mean to you?
Well, it didn't mean anything. I shouldn't say anything. It didn't mean much at the time. Everything you accomplish when you're a player, you always want to do it more. You want to do it better. You want to win the Stanley Cup. You want to do this. You want to do that. And you don't really have time to sit back and look at what you've accomplished, your accolades, and what you've done until you get to where I am now. And you talk to people about it. Like, I couldn't talk about this when I was 24, 25 years old. It was just, hey, listen, I'm not done yet. I got to do this. I got to do that. But now, when you look back, yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that it happened. And it was a real slow process that year because I never had great games. What I mean by that is, so I got 53 goals, and over the 53 goals, I never got a hat trick, and I never got an empty net goal. So through the 80 games, I got 1 here, 2 there. I didn't get 1. I got 1. I got 1. I got 1. I got 2. I got 1. There was not a game where I got 4 or 5 goals or did this or jumped out. So that's what was interesting about that getting 50 goals. But I guess the most important part for me about that 50 goals is a lot of people don't know was in the Montreal Forum. And in the Montreal Forum was the same place that Rocket Richard got his first 50 goals.
Wow.
So he was the first person that ever scored 50 goals. And there was me, the first American to score 50 goals in the same net in the same building.
What are the odds of that? I mean, wow, that's
I know.
fantastic. I mean, that had to be what that like for you. That had to be an incredible feeling because your consistency, when you're telling me this, you never had a hat trick, but the consistency that you came out each and every night out on the ice and the effort you made really paid off with you being so consistent.
I think, again, I keep repeating how you never had time to enjoy the different things.
Right.
So it was at the end of the year. And the biggest thing I remember was we were in a playoff run. We were in position to, I forget, every game back then was a playoff run, especially being in the Patrick division with the Islanders, the Rangers, Philadelphia. And, it was always tough to get positions. But the biggest thing is we lost the game. And you couldn't enjoy it. I mean, it was like, shit, we lost this game. This is not good. We dropped the points. But now you look back and you're like, geez, did that game really mean that much to me, or should you have been more excited? Well, probably you should have. But as a professional athlete, you can't let those things get in the way of a team game.
You're listening to former NHL great Bobby Carpenter, who played 18 seasons in the National Hockey League here on ATL Prime Sports, played for the Washington Capitals, the New York Rangers, the Los Angeles Kings, the Boston Bruins, and the New Jersey Devils. I'm going to stay with 1985 here. You were invited to play in the NHL All-Star Game. And also, you played in the Canada Cup tourney for Team USA in 84 and 87. What a time in your life, and what an honor for you to play in the All-Star Game in 85, the Canada Cup in 84 and 87. What were your thoughts during that time period? And, it was just competitive hockey for you, or did it, in your mind, did you think, man, I've got to step up my game even more, especially playing it in the Canada Cup for the United States?
Well, the Canada Cup was unbelievable. I mean, that was all the best players in the world. And I was fortunate enough at that time to be able to be coached by Bob Johnson, who was one of the best coaches in hockey history. So I always remember that. I mean, I learned so much from him during those two Canada Cups. It was unbelievable. I mean, he was just so far advanced to hockey. But it's the funny thing about the All-Star Game. So we were in Calgary, and that was one of the first years they went to voting. And that was one of the first years that I ended up getting voted in because I had such a great year, and it was so exciting in Washington. It was American player. So I ended up actually getting, so the first two lines got voted in, and then the coach picked the rest. But I remember going to the All-Star Game and sitting there in Calgary, and they were talking about me being the first voted player and voted this, voted that, and everything. Well, I remember I was sitting next to Brian Trottier, and actually it was after that. But that was one of the first times I had met Brian Trottier, because in '87 I actually ended up playing in the Canada Cup with Brian Trottier, and this is one of the reasons why we became good friends. So I'm sitting next to him, and Al Arbor, who is our coach, was talking about the starting lineup, and I'm sitting there, and he says, "Okay, Bobby, you're center because you got voted, and Brian," he says, "you're going to play left wing," and he says this and everything, and all of a sudden Brian Trottier says to me, he goes, "I've never played left wing my whole life. Can you imagine an All-Star game?" So I kind of felt guilty about that. Here's this guy that just won 4 Stanley Cups, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, this isn't right. So I went to Al Arbor, and I said, "Al, listen, we got to switch this." "What do you mean?" I said, "I can't let Brian Trottier play left wing." I said, "I can play left wing. I'll play left wing." He said, "No problem." So Brian we had to do it for the first shift to make it legal. So I actually took the face off, but after that, I played left wing with Brian Trottier.
What was it like playing against them great Islander teams back in the in the 80s, because they were as good as it gets?
Oh, they were good. They were really good. They had everything. I mean, they were they were a dynasty. I mean, they were big and strong and fast. But I think that's where you learn a lot of stuff about a sport and how to win. You could feel the confidence that they had. I mean, we were playing in Washington. We had them one year. They moved the series to, at the beginning, it was a 2 out of 3, but then it went to 3 out of 5. So we actually had split in Washington. We actually finished ahead of them. And so it's 1-1, and we're in the island, and we're beating them like 3-1 in the third period, and it's going great. So if we win this, we're up 2-1. Then we got a game back home in Washington. Well, they woke up, they decided they were just playing with us. They ended up beating us in the island. They beat us 2 in a row, but they knew how to do it. That was the experience that they knew. They were a phenomenal team.
One of the best teams in NHL history, no doubt about it. You
I
went through
agree.
a phase when you went through a phase in your career. Why didn't you get along with the Capitals head coach Brian Murray at the time? And is this what led you to your trade to the Rangers? Because you got to figure at this point you're playing really well with Washington. Maybe you would be there your whole career.
Well, you know what's interesting, and again, you talk about growing older, you talk about maturity. So yeah, I think when I went to Washington, I had Gary Green. He was the head coach, Gary Green, and he was great to me. He was absolutely phenomenal. He was a communicator. He talked to me. He explained things, everything. Well, unfortunately, he had gotten fired, and they had a major transition. So Brian Murray, who had won some championships as a junior coach from Peterborough, he had come in. And I think, honestly, I mean, this is just my opinion, he kind of was pro-Canadian. He wanted to come in and teach me how to play. He says, I'm going to show you what you need to do. And I don't think he was a very good communicator to me. And I was often lost. I got often put in the fourth line and this and everything. And believe me, a lot of it was my fault. I was a 19-year-old kid that was stubborn from Boston. I was pig-headed and everything. But I don't think that they knew how to communicate with players back then. I think they were told, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. You do it. Well, that's when everything was changing back then in the NHL. Young kids were coming in. They were getting in shape. They were eating better. They were working out. They weren't smoking. They weren't drinking. And it was a transition. And I don't think the communication was good at the time. And I use that lesson today when I talk to young players. I say to people, oh, he stinks. He's not doing good. He's not this. I said, listen, he's 20 years old. He's a young kid. He needs to grow up. He needs to mature. And we have to be patient with this because I saw how it didn't work for me. So that's why I love the job of player development, because I have more time and patience for these players, because it takes time. They're young kids. They're boys thrown into a man's world. But the sporting industry doesn't get that. Oh, he's making this much money. He should be an adult. No, it's sorry. Right. It don't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way.
You
and
got
I
to
saw
play.
what it did to me.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. I apologize.
I said, and I saw what it did to me, and I just wished I had a better group of people to do that. And again, I was tough. I'll admit that, but I don't think the effort was there or the time was there to help me. There was no communication like there should be, and that's how I feel on that situation. That's for sure.
You mentioned your toughness. 6 foot, 200 pounds. You played center, so not only were you fast, but you had to take the checks from the defensemen, the forwards, and etc. Because the players are probably a little bigger than you. What did you do did you use your speed as an advantage?
Well, it's interesting. I was 200 pounds. I was 198 pounds my last 4 or 5 years when I was 33, 34, 35, 36. So the funny part about the NHL was there was always a question about the size and because they'd never seen a person from high school come to the NHL. So this is a funny story. When I was light most of my career, but I remember when I was getting ready to go, I was 17 years old. It was July, early July. I was going to go down to Washington to get ready to train. My birthday was late July, and my father was doing the house over, and he didn't quite finish the closets, and they were just kind of sheetrock. So I came downstairs. We were getting ready to go to the airport. He said, "Did you weigh yourself?" I said, "Why?" He goes, "Go weigh yourself and see what you weigh when you come back." I said, "Okay." So again, there was no physical training back then. There was no this. So I weighed in. I came downstairs with my clothes on. I told him I was 183 pounds. He says, "Okay." He says, "You got to remember that." I said, "I wrote it on the sheetrock." He said, "Okay, good." So when I had come back I had come back in April, my mother was floored. She thought I was sick. She's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how skinny you are." But I didn't feel any different. So my father says, "Go weigh yourself." I weighed in at 167.
Wow. That's incredible.
Isn't it? And now I played 80 games. The year before in high school, I played 14 because we didn't make the playoffs. So I went from playing 14 games at 15-minute periods to playing 80 games at 20-minute periods with men.
Well, that's obviously how you ended up, losing the weight at the time, and then, trying to get it back, because you went, like we mentioned earlier, you went straight from high school to the NHL. And like you said, you only played X amount of games in high school. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're playing 80 games. And if your team makes the playoffs, Lord knows how many games you're going to play after that. So that is incredible. And
it was.
You got to play in your first Stanley Cup final, and it was for your hometown Boston Bruins. What did that mean to you, and what was it like playing in the finals?
Well, to me today, that is the most devastating thing that I have not accomplished in my life. I love the way my hockey career went and everything, but I'll tell you what, I know how Boston is, and I know how they are with winners, and I wanted nothing more to win that series and be a winner in Boston, in my hometown. It was incredible. Unfortunately, Edmonton was that much better. I think we lost in 5 games, and I was just devastated. And to this day, it's one of the things that I miss the most, is not being able to win in Boston. It would have been just incredible to be able to accomplish that. But unfortunately, we did it. Edmonton was better. I got to say that they were. But it was incredible to be able to go and play in the finals in front of those people.
Well, speaking of that was one of the better teams of all time, too, and led by Wayne Gretzky. I mean, Gretzky was a center. You were a center. What was it like going up against Wayne Gretzky, the great one?
Well, actually, that was one of the series that I actually started to become a checker. So I had kind of two different hockey careers. I think I played 18 years, and the first 9 years I was a goal scorer, penalty, power play guy, and everything. And then I ended up becoming a checker and penalty killer, mostly in New Jersey. But that's in Boston is where it started, and it wasn't because of Gretzky. It was because of Mark Messier. We did not have a big team full of centermen. We had Craig Janney, who was really slight and small, and I really can't remember who the other ones were, but I remember Mike Milbury saying to me, "Listen, I don't need you to score goals. I don't need you to do this. We got Cam, we got this, we got Cam Neely, we got Craig Janney, we got all these players." He says, "I need you to stop Messier. If we can stop Messier, we have a chance to win." So obviously you want to win, so you'll do anything. Like, okay, I don't care about not being on the power play. And ironically enough, I did do my job. We did stop Messier. He did not get a point in that series. Unfortunately, they had a line with young kids. They call it the kid line, which was made up of Martin Jelinek. Who's the one for the Rangers? I'm trying to think of the names. It's so long ago.
Paul Coffey, he was a great defenseman, but he could put the puck in the net.
Oh, he was unbelievable. I mean, he was one of the best defensemen for goal scoring ever. I mean, he got 48 goals one year. I mean, he was as close to Bobby Orr as you could get. But they had Billy Ranford, who had played for the Bruins, and he got revenge. He did a great job. He did an incredible job. But it was just awesome to be able to be there in that old garden and be able to play in the finals, and like you said, in your hometown.
After getting a second tour of duty with the Capitals, you actually were traded to the New Jersey Devils. You won your first Stanley Cup during the 95-94 strike-shortened season. You beat my Red Wings, which killed me, but my son was born during game one. I held him all night. I was wearing a Red Wings jersey, and my wife said, "You gonna let him go?" I'm like, "No, just go to sleep. I'll rock him all night long, and I'll watch the Stanley Cup Finals." And I remember you guys just swept our Red Wings in 4 straight, and you guys deserved it. Y'all thoroughly played Detroit, and you got to hold the Stanley Cup and hang on with it. Tell me some stories about A, the series, B, hoisting the cup, and C, hanging out with the cup because you get to spend time with it in the summer after winning it all.
Well, it started the year before, to be honest with you. So we were all new in New Jersey the year before. This is where things have changed. This is where Marty Bedore played his first year. This is where Jacques Lemaire had his first coach. Larry Robinson was his first coach there. We had a lot of new players there. And so we went through the process through the year, and we had a great year. We really did. It was unbelievable. And we ended up being up 3-1 to the Rangers, and we ended up losing, and the Rangers ended up winning the cup that year. Well, we felt like we were slighted, like we were a better team. We should have won. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the Rangers. I mean, Messier did a great job. He was a great leader. They had a great team. And it was still, to me, honestly, one of the best series ever. When that 94 series with the Rangers and the Devils. But before that series started, actually, my daughter was born the year before that. So she was born in April, and they had my wife induced so that I could actually go back to play in the playoffs. So I missed the first 6 weeks of her life because we were playing, and my wife was back home in Boston. But after we had left that year, we knew we had a chance to win, and we knew the next year. We couldn't wait for that next year to get started. And unfortunately, it was the lockout year, so we were devastated. Like, we wanted to hurry up and get this thing going. And so we had such a silent confidence. And when we finally got to the finals against Detroit, we were so confident in our system. Everything that we did was exactly the way. We were like a well-oiled machine where those Russians had back in the 80s and everything. We were so hungry to win. But Detroit had all the skill. They had all the goal scorers. They had all the players. And fortunately for us, we won in 4 games because they never knew what hit them. They never knew why they were losing. They couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand that our system and our discipline was the reason why we were winning. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't adjust. They couldn't change. And that's one of the reasons why we won. And it was incredible to be able to beat that team like that because on paper, we never should have won a game.
That's what I was thinking that day while I was in the hospital. But then I was like, oh, boy, I think we're in trouble here. I'm thinking Eiserman and company are in big trouble here. But yes, now tell me some stories about hoisting the cup and then hanging out with it. Because you get to hang out with it. Everybody gets passed around. You get to drink out of it and everything.
Right. And that I was getting old at that point, believe it or not. So anyway, my job at that point was to be the checker. So if we were losing the last half of the game, I'd probably might get 3 or 4 shifts. Well, through that playoff series, we went 16-4. So every last half of the game, when we had the lead, I hardly ever came off the ice. I took every face-off. I was out there. I was more exhausted at the end of the Stanley Cup than I was my first year. And honestly, when we won, yeah, it was great. It was great to have it in the room and everything like that. But there was so many younger kids that were so excited about it and running around. So we left the rink and we went to this one restaurant/bar that we always went to. And honestly, it was like a half hour into it. I said to my wife, I said, I got to go to bed. I said, I got to go home. So I actually went home, and all my friends and my family stayed, but I was just spent. I couldn't keep going anymore. But when we got the cup, it was incredible. I mean, we brought it. We had a place up in New Hampshire. We brought it up. We had all the friends and anybody that had anything to do with it. It was really special. I mean, it was really good to be able to just sit there and hold it and feed it and study it and watch it. And it's unreal. I mean, it's something that you dream about and pretend the minute you can skate. I mean, I'm 4 years old in the backyard. I won 17 Stanley Cups one year in the backyard when I was 5 years old. That's what you do.
That is great. And I saw on your Twitter account today, I followed you on Twitter. I saw a picture of your daughter when she was really young, sleeping with a Stanley Cup, and I'm going, oh man, I've got a Stanley Cup downstairs. It's like a replica in my basement. It has when the Red Wings won it all a few years later, and that's our cup in the house. And then when I saw the real thing in the bed, she's sleeping with it. I said, wow, that has got to be the coolest picture, one of the coolest pictures you've ever taken.
So my wife is a photographer, not a professional, but she's very, very good. So she has all these great ideas. We have all these great memories because of it. So she did. She put it in in her bed. And it was funny because it was one of those nights where the kids, we were disciplined. They go to bed at 9 or 10 or whatever it was. But we had people up, and so she was up all night. Well, when she took the picture, she was so mad. She was so mad that she ended up waking up halfway through the pictures that she started yelling at her mother. But it was ironic. So the other picture in that the two-part pictures, which is an incredible story also. So actually my daughter ends up being she's a pretty good hockey player. So she ended up playing for the team in China, and they played against the U.S. teams, but unfortunately with the way the women's hockey is going, there's no more women's hockey for the last couple of years. So she played in China, and they played in the KHL. So that other trophy, they had won the championship. They had won the KHL, the Russian trophy. So it was funny how all those years later that she gets a picture with the Stanley Cup, and then she finally gets her big trophy. It's the KHL trophy.
Speaking of your daughter, Alexandra, she is a member of the United States Women's National Hockey Team. She was also with the Boston Pride. Plus, your son, Robert III, had a 2-year entry-level contract with the New York Islanders. Describe the feeling watching your kids succeed at a high level.
And again, I'm at that feeling that I had when I was a kid. I kind of carry it now as a parent. They're not done yet. It's awesome that they're at the level that they're at and they've accomplished what they have, but there's more out there for them. I know my daughter has more goals. I know my son has more goals. So I can't sit here and say, oh, this is the best thing in the world for me, because it's not, because I know they haven't reached their potential yet. They haven't reached the end for them. And that's what I was talking about when I was younger. You don't understand it. It's just something that you can't close yet, because if you're happy with what you do today, there's no reason to go out and do what you want to do tomorrow. So I think that, yeah, I'm very proud of what they've done. I just know they want more. There's more out there for them. And then you can really sprout your feathers and say how proud you are. But I can't say that now. I am, that they're at the level they're at, but I know what they want to do. I know they want more.
You kind of adopted your dad's mentality, did you? I know there's more for my son. Now I know there's more for my kids.
No question about it. And again, if you got to be fair, if it ended today, the first thing I would say is you did an incredible job. I said, I can't believe how far you got. But you can say that, but you still want more until it finally ends, And I know I did that with my career. I always wanted to do more. And then I remember sitting in the office with Lou Lamorello, and he says, boy, I can't believe what you've done. He goes, I remember recruiting you to Providence College at 14 years old. He goes, I never could think that you could do what you accomplished, which makes you feel good because it was above and beyond what people expected of you.
Going back in time with former NHL great Bobby Carpenter, who played 18 years in the National Hockey League with the Washington Capitals, New York Rangers, Los Angeles Kings, Boston Bruins, and New Jersey Devils. Recently, you were a head coach in the KHL for the Kunlun Red Star in China. Tell me all about that. What was that experience, and what was it like being a head coach in China?
Well, it was interesting. So I was playing development for the Toronto Maple Leafs for 6 or 7 years, and we all had got released when they had some changes. So I was fortunate enough to be able to spend a lot of time with the kids and watch them play, and they were in college, and one was at BC, one was at BU, so it was great. But I got to the point where they played Friday and Saturday nights. I'm waiting all week for a couple of games, and I kept saying to my wife, I'd like to get back to work. I'd like to do this and do that. So this opportunity came. I actually had started out the year with Mike Keenan. And I had known Mike. I had met him a few times, and I enjoyed his company. I never had a chance to work with him, but so he was actually the head coach to start the whole thing off. So he asked me if I would want to go with him, and I wasn't sure because it was in China. I mean, it's halfway around the world, and we were playing in the KHL. And I said to my wife, I said, "Geez, I don't know about this." And so the more I thought about it, I talked to a bunch of people. I decided to take a chance because I could get all the games on TV. I could watch all the games on the computer and plug in. I could watch my daughter's games, my son's games, and they were on at 7 in the morning because it was a 12-hour time change. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to miss much this way. So I decided to do it, and it turned out to be one of the best experiences I ever had. I've heard all these things about Russia, all the places where all these kids are born, all these famous Russians are born and played and everything. And I got the chance to go into those rinks and see the Red Army rink and how they trained, and to go to Magnitogorsk, to go to Ufa, to go to Siberia. I mean, and it was unbelievable. We were gone for 8 months, and it was probably one of the most best experiences I've ever had. But would I ever do it again? No, I won't. It was just a long time to be away from home, but I loved it. It was awesome.
What was the skill level of those players, may I ask?
Unbelievable. They are so much more skilled than us. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. I mean, the game is a totally different game. It's an upscaled pond hockey game, but the skill level that all those players have are unbelievable. It's not as physical. They're not as big. They're just as fast. I don't think they're as strong, but it's unbelievable, the skill level. I would honestly say the skill level is much, much better in the KHL than it is here. No question.
Wow. And one last question, and then I'll let you go. In 2016, you ran the Boston Marathon. That must have been quite a challenge.
Again, I got to the point where I wasn't working, and one of my friend of mine that I grew up with. He was an Olympic runner. So I was getting older, and I didn't want to go through the winter and gain 20 pounds. So I started to run. I was doing the 5 or 6 or 7 miles. So I had breakfast with him one morning, and I had asked him at 53 years old if I could run the marathon. And he said, "What time do you want to do it in?" I said, "Well, I don't want to just walk it and say I did it in 7 hours." I said, "I'd like to break 4 hours." So he said, "I need 7 months." And he said, "I'm going to send you a schedule every Monday, and if you do it, you'll break it." I said, "Okay, that's fine." So I did every single thing he said, and I ended up doing it in 3:43. And it was awesome. I mean, you talk about getting into a new brand of athletes. I learned so much more about a different sport that I couldn't get enough of it. I'm like, "Well, Freddie, why do we do this? Why do we do that? How come this? How come that? Why do we eat this? Why do we do that?" I just learned a whole new sport, and it was absolutely awesome. So I did it 2 more times, and next year after that, I actually pushed the wheelchair of the Dena Lang that I grew up playing hockey with her father, and my daughter played against his daughters, and she got paralyzed. She got paralyzed at the game at New Year's Eve at Boston, and I actually ended up pushing her, and I did a different type of training, and that was probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
Bobby, 3 Stanley Cups, 1 as a player, 2 as assistant coach, 320 goals, 408 assists for 720 points. Wow, what a career. It was a pleasure having you on ATL Prime Sports. I want to wish you the best of luck, you and your family, and continue to enjoy your kids watching them play and whatever else you do. It was really an honor to have you on ATL Prime Sports.
Awesome. It was great. It was a lot of fun, a lot of memories. That was great to bring back a lot of those things. And as you get older, you forget all those things, but it's great to go back for sure.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really grateful that you did, and we'll talk to you down the line.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. You take care.
You too, sir. That was the great
Stay
Bobby
safe.
Carpenter, who played 18 seasons in the National Hockey League for the Devils, the Rangers, the Devils, the Rangers, the Kings, the Capitals, and his hometown Boston Bruins. And what a fantastic career Bobby Carpenter did. I love going way back in time with him in his 18-year National Hockey League career. That'll do it here on ATL Prime Sports. Thank you for joining in. Next week, we'll have some other former athletes, and we'll go back in time in their sport. Stay safe, God bless, and have a great day.